For most of us, boarding a train implies a predictable kind of security. You step into a climate-controlled cabin, the doors seal, and tons of steel glide effortlessly along a dedicated, highly regulated corridor far removed from the unpredictability of everyday life. That sense of insulation vanishes the moment a locomotive comes barreling into a completely uncontrolled space, where tracks are swallowed by the surrounding environment. Here in Thailand, the Mae Klong market operates directly on an active train line. Hundreds of vendors run a sprawling vegetable market across the steel ties. When the warning horn sounds, a highly synchronized mechanical routine takes over. Vendors rapidly fold back their canvas awnings and drag their produce baskets inward, clearing the line with only seconds to spare before the train pushes through. There is a physical clearance of exactly 1 foot between the churning wheels of the moving locomotive and the pedestrians standing shoulder to shoulder along its flanks. The Mae Klong market shows how necessity forces a compromise between massive infrastructure and daily human activity. But outside of cities, engineering has to contend with far more hostile, unforgiving earthly forces. Leaving the claustrophobia of the urban market behind, we move to the absolute exposure of the open ocean. In southern India, the tracks of the Pamban Bridge strip away all natural barriers. This map highlights a vital 2-kilometer stretch of ocean connecting Rameshwaram to Pamban Island. But the primary adversary is the atmosphere. This exposed corridor is routinely battered by severe cyclonic systems, high-speed winds, and towering wave surges. For the passengers looking out the windows, the concrete and steel disappear from view. They see nothing but churning water on all sides, creating the deeply unsettling sensation of a train drifting aimlessly across the sea. Bridging an ocean strait means there is no true shelter. The route demands a permanent, calculated vulnerability to catastrophic weather events. Atmospheric threats usually arrive with some warning. But in other regions, the greatest danger erupts directly from the Earth's crust. Japan's Minami-Aso railway route demands absolute precision. Parts of this track consist of incredibly narrow, open-sided iron bridges spanning deep gorges. A single mechanical failure or driver error here means a sheer, unrecoverable drop. Yet the drop is a secondary concern. This route operates in the shadow of Mount Aso, the largest and most active volcano in Japan. The tracks run close enough that passengers frequently witness glowing lava and thick ash clouds during their transit. They traverse an environment perpetually on the brink of an unpreventable, highly explosive eruption. The structural engineering of the bridges is meticulous, but the ground beneath them is entirely unpredictable. Operating this line is an act of geological roulette, relying entirely on the volatile timing of tectonic forces. Far above the active volcanic lowlands, other railway projects challenge the vertical limits of geography, carving paths straight up into the clouds. Argentina's Train to the Clouds required 27 years of brutal labor to complete, forcing a continuous line of steel up and over the massive, jagged terrain of the Andes. To maintain an operational grade at 4,225 meters above sea level, workers constructed an intricate, fragile-looking network of steel bridges, spanning massive desert gorges. Moving further north along the Andes into Ecuador, engineers faced an even more abrupt obstacle, a near-vertical mountain known as the Devil's Nose. The desperate solution was to dynamite tracks directly into the sheer face of the mountain, creating a series of jagged, successive switchbacks. To descend, the locomotive has to pull forward past a junction, stop entirely, and then roll backward down the next section of track. Throughout these incredibly tight maneuvers, the wheels run dangerously close to the edge of the rails. These extreme high-altitude routes push rolling stock to its mechanical limits. Every transit is an active, ongoing battle against gravity and the absolute threshold of structural engineering. The steep drops and narrow clearances test the nerves of modern passengers. But the true cost of these railways was paid decades ago by the men who originally conquered the geography. In 1943, construction began on a route connecting Thailand and Burma. The objective was to force a supply line through some of the planet's most impenetrable and unforgiving terrain. Workers were thrust into deep jungles and ordered to carve through rock cliffs along the River Kwai, battling disease, starvation, and grueling manual labor. This visualization shows the devastating math of the project. To lay down just 415 kilometers of track, more than 90,000 lives were lost. Statistically, hundreds of men perished for every single kilometer completed. Portions of the Death Railway remain active today. Riding it requires navigating dizzying heights and rickety wooden trestles. But the heavy reality of the journey comes from understanding exactly what lies beneath the rails. These 7 railways stand as permanent monuments to an audacious and sometimes tragic refusal to let the earth dictate our limits.